In this webinar, we're going to review what's new in Business by Design, release 2008, so our August release. Within this webinar, I'm going to just highlight a lot of the new features that are going through within each of the individual areas. Since this is just a post recording, and you may or may not have access to a lot of the links that you'll see in this presentation. If you do see something that if you do want this presentation, please feel free to reach out to sales@vistaview.com, and I will send you a link to this presentation. So within each of the different areas, we're going to go through just the highlights, and then I'll jump in and do some demos on some of the key features and functionality that we see in each of the different areas. So starting off in the financial management area, not a whole heck of a lot came out in the financial area of Business by Design. A lot's been coming up from lease accounting, ASC 606, and things like that have really been massive improvements in financial management. So a lot of focus has been shifted, you'll see, into the supply chain management and CRM areas. So you'll see that there's a new view in the lease contract by conditions report. You can now have extension fields in the fixed asset within the organizational assignments tab. That can only be done through the SDK or the PDI. And then there was a change to the customer contracts report, the logic prior to this release. If the system found that one line item in the contract was if one line item in the contract was either a status of complete and the validity date not started, it would eliminate the entire contract from the profitability report. So now what happens, even if just one line item will show up, the whole rest of the contract will appear. So you'll see some more enhancements and more data show up within your profitability reports regarding contracts that have either been canceled or completed. Within the human resources areas, you'll see that there's a new option to block updates to time entries in this employee self-services. So within the time administration work center, there's a new option in there to actually block the entry. So after a particular date, employees can't go in and make changes or updates to their time. And then the other new really big piece of functionality that just got out of beta testing has been the resource management based on the planned work on project tasks. If you'll notice in this presentation, anything that's marked in the highlight here with the asterisk, it's going to require business configuration changes. So where some features you just see appear in your tenant, in other ones, you'll have to actually go in and activate it. And if you have a test tenant, again, highly recommended, put in your test tenant through a change project and then deploy it so you have get a chance to work with it before you deploy it to production. So let's go in and actually look at that resource management piece. Up until now, so we'll kind of pop into a project here and we'll explain the changes that have happened if you are using project management for billing purposes with customers or just internal projects that you want to manage a lot of resources. Up until this release, if you wanted to see the availability of a resource, what the system would do it would take this committed work that you would apply in the team and staffing tab, and then it would take either the start and finish date that you would manually put into these dates, or the overall project time start and end date. And then it would just spread that time evenly between each of the days that are available in the project. So if this was a 3-month project for 60 hours total, you'd see about 3 hours a day that were allocated to the resource. And in actuality, maybe you really needed this resource for a 2-week period at the beginning of the project, and then not again the whole rest of the project. So it didn't really give you an accurate representation of the resources availability and when they were going to be able to work on projects. So now what's happening is that within your staffing tab, or actually within the project tab, actually anywhere, you can come into your work, and then all of the planned work from the task level is now being used to calculate the availability. So it gives you a much better, more detailed representation of when you're going to be needing the resource. And now you can actually get down to essentially day level planning from an availability standpoint. So we get a lot better results on our resource management, our resource searches. So if I did have, as an example, someone that was working on this project for 40 hours over the course of the project task that was going for a month and a half, but I only needed them for the first week, you would now see that front loaded in the first part of the project. We can view the availability from the team area. So if I highlighted Tanya as an example and I show her availability, this is now what you'll see. So again, before this release, if you opened up the availability, all you would see was the availability based on the project that you were in. Now we can actually see all of the projects that she is assigned to. So you can see I've got 76, 87, 86, and then all the way down to the task and service level that she is assigned to. So again, very, very deep level of granularity to be able to see where she has time and where she doesn't. So I can view it singly from this screen. If I'm also in staff by structure, the same type of capability pops in here as well. The show availability will also show me Peter, and then all of his availability for that particular time frame. The other area where you can see it very well is within the actual resource management, within the resource search area. And this is a great tool, again, if you're trying to find which type of resources you need to work on a particular project. If you're using the resource search and the skills profile, I can type in just what type of skill that I need for my particular resources. And then I can highlight all of the resources that fit the criteria that I need and show their availability in whole, and really highlight out exactly who has time and who doesn't. And so I can see that Mick is over allocated, and I can pull in and see exactly where people are working and where they're not. And again, I can get all the way down to that service level, and I've got new different actions that are popped up in here. So I can open up the project directly. I can open up the employee itself, but I can also start to redistribute the time for that resource as well. So if I see over, maybe I don't want to look at it at 12 weeks, I want to look over 30 days as an example. And then I see that, you know, he's got an hour here, hour there. I can pop into this and see that he's got his 100 hours. And so that's right now it's spread across that whole time frame. So I only see like an hour across, a little bit more than an hour across essentially 90 days. Maybe I do want to scrunch that up for those 100 hours, and I'm going to put it in from September 1 until September 29th. I can now save that. And so what the system will do is it'll recalculate those 100 hours and distribute among those at 29 days. So now I'll see essentially a change in 3 hours per day. The one thing to note in here, as I make changes to this period plan, it does take a minute or so because it's going through a whole entire recalculation process. As the system is doing its work, you'll see these little refresh buttons, so you know that it's not actually the most up to the minute calculation, right? So we won't wait for that to happen, but what would happen is across here you'll see that these figures will change from 1.18 to about 2 or 3 hours per day. Yep, won't give it any more time. All right. So that is the new resource management capability, which is, I'm very excited about that. And that's also going to be reflective in all of your reports and things. So it's a big change for everyone if you're not used to using actual resource, resource planning within the task level. Right. Now, my favorite part is the supply chain management. I'm so excited that we're seeing lots and lots of new features and functions coming out within the supply chain management area. that we've been asking for in Influence for a long time. So you'll see some very cool things in here. So the first one is the remaining quantity can now be brought into the delivery note and the ASN, so we can alert customers of any back order quantities. Customer orders 5, they get 2. They want to see on that shipment that, yep, there's 2 in here, but I still have 3 on back order, and that you're going to get it. Pretty straightforward. So I'm going to show you how that works. So let's just look at this example. We had my so we had an order here for Home Depot, and we'll take a look at the we can take a look at the sales order. So we see that we had 2 get delivered. However, within our sales order, so if we pop into our sales order, we can actually see that we had ordered 5. So we ordered 5 in our sales order and we shipped 2. So now we have a remaining open quantity of 3. So now what I can do is add this field. If I just do a quick preview, and this is the delivery note. Again, this also is pertains to the advanced shipping notice. You'll now see that you can bring in a new quantity open field. So I've got, the quantity of 2 that was ordered, quantity shipped, and then the quantity opened. It's just a quick example. And so how we activate that, it doesn't just show up on your forms by default. You actually have to go in. So a key user that has access to application and user management will have to go into application and user management, and then your form template maintenance. And we can pop into, let's go into our we'll make a change to the delivery note here. This wants to come up. All right, and it's gonna be our delivery note. All right, so what we want to do is go into, if you haven't done any advanced changes to your delivery notes or ASNs, you'll be able to go in and do this through the Easy Form Editor. If you've done more advanced changes using Adobe Lifecycle Designer, obviously you're going to have to go in there, but now the field is going to be available in Lifecycle Designer to add it to your form. But if you've just done simple changes or not made any edits to the forms, we can go into the Easy Form Editor. And once we pop into here, we will see, what we're going to do in here is just add a column to the existing table, and then we'll add our new field. So if we go into the delivery details, open that guy up, go into the columns, we'll see everything that's listed across here. You'll add a new column. And then, so I've gotten here already added, but if I wanted to just add a new one, this will pop open. And so you'll navigate down through the tree structure of each of the fields and the different options in here. And as I open up the, item and the material, well, I don't even have to open the material. Yeah, open the material. You'll see in here, there's a new field, a new column here called remaining quantity. And so you'll typically probably put in your quantity and then the type code name for your unit of measure. So you get like 4 eaches, 5 eaches, whatever you need, as opposed to just like 4.0. So you can just select that and bring it on over to the right, and then that will add it into the column. And then publish, change, and that will now become part of your new form. And like I said, you can change that for both the delivery note and the ASN. Right. There's also a new attachment type that's relevant for the outbound delivery in the product master, which will flow to the outbound delivery at the item level. So for example, anything like a hazmat type of sheet or MSDSs or things like that that you need to append to a delivery, we can see that. So you can pop into the product data, and we can bring up one of our materials. And then in your attachments tab, you'll see a new file in here, a new file type. And so the one that you'll select relevant for outbound delivery, attach your sheet. Now, the one thing to note is that if you do have it on like an ASN or a delivery note or something that you want, that you're going to be sending out, that attachment needs to be included in the output in the outbound delivery. So if I go into the, the outbound logistics and my outbound delivery in here, you would see in your line item details attachments. If there was an attachment that got pulled over, you'll be able to select in here, include an output or not. It's not going to be defaulted that it will be automatically included with any sort of send notification. So just be aware of that. It needs to manually be clicked on or it won't go out, but it will carry over. Okay. So we can now extend custom fields into the ASN. Great news. If you are sending out automated notifications to the customers that their goods are on their way, then, and you have specific fields that you have appended to the material master or specific to the customer, those can now be brought through to the ASN. We can now export to Excel the material flow data in supply planning. There's a new warning message that'll appear if you're trying to undo an outbound delivery release after the invoice has already been released. So if you're trying to make late stage changes to things, you'll have a message that pops up that, yep, the invoice has already been released. There's now the Excel file for the inventory count upload via Excel has been augmented now, and you'll see the material description in there. When you're giving that off to a worker, you might have very similar item IDs, and it makes much more sense to have both the item ID and the material description, so it can help them figure out that they're picking and counting the right thing. So now both of those are going to be in the inventory count. Two new cool features in here. The production bombs can now be set to obsolete, and they also can, and the production bills of operations can also be, the bills of operations can also be set to obsolete. And then with that, there's been a change to the logic for the production model handling as it pertains to obsolete bills of materials and bills of operations. So we'll hop in and we'll show you that. So if you're in your planning and production master data and you have your bills of materials, you'll now see within the object work list that there's a new obsolete status in here. So from the work list, I can just click the obsolete and it will, or I can just undo it. If for a change, like for an example, if for a certain period of time, you're having a shortage of a particular raw material and you're doing a substitution, you have a whole nother bill of materials, or you're bringing something off the line while you're, while you're re-engineering it, we can obsolete it. And then you can unobsolete it once you go through like engineering change control and bring it back into production. So you'll see that this putter head, the version's been obsolete. The same thing will happen on the bills of operations. So if there is anything that's obsolete, I can pretty much obsolete this guy. Let's obsolete this one too. And then what happens in the background, if either the bill of materials or the bill of operations is obsolete, these boxes will now be checked from your production model, and then the execution status or the planning status is going to revert back to check pending. And so when you're going in, if you are actually have a production model release run set up in here, there's now a new option here. So it's going to go through and it's going to check and make sure that even though you have like all check pending and inconsistent ones that you want to run through the logic, if it sees that it has an obsolete mark in there, it's not going to release it. So you don't have to worry about, having bills of materials and bills of operations released, but or obsoleted, but having a released production model. So it'll immediately take it out of the mix for production purposes. Right, a couple other things here that we've got. So your project stock orders are now supported for 3PL scenarios. This is one of my exciting things. So last release, we saw some features around production orders. I've been asking and asking for this, of being able to change midstream production orders. So we are getting there. The ability last time was to be able to change dates for, or be able to delete production orders and things like that. Now we can actually go in and change the latest end and latest start date for a released and not started production order. Prior to this, the only time that you could change and do a forward schedule, backward schedule on orders was when it was in preparation status, so when it hadn't been released. So now we've got that, and I'll quickly just show that as well. To production control. And we can pop into our production orders. And so if we've got, like, let's, as an example, we've got this order for mulch, and we can go ahead and release that order. I can now look in. So what this actually lets me do is I can now start to use a little of the scheduled start and end date kind of thing a little bit. So I can edit this order. Now that I have that sitting out here, it's been released and it hasn't been started yet. And if I want to just change that to 9/20, oops. There we go. So now we see that we can forward and backward schedule. We'll be able to change that, or if I needed to change that back, we'll see all those changes proliferate down. So we're getting there. Hopefully the next phase in that is being able to change things after they're released. So we'll be able to get down to operation level and be able to do that planning on the fly while things are, replanning, and update the supply chain while we're in process. So everybody keep your fingers crossed. We also have, this is also a really nice feature too, if you're not using mobile warehouse and you're using serial numbers. This has been asked for quite a bit in a lot of different areas, like returns and shipments and things like that, of being able to have a value help for selection within different business areas. So in returns, outbound delivery, shipments, other areas that you'd select, you can now have the value help. It's not just a key in or an upload. So back to this, if I'm in my outbound deliveries, just to quickly show you. So if I am going into post goods issue for this product, for this guy. And it's now a serialized item. So here's our fancy little value help, and now it's going to bring up all of my serial numbers that are still in stock. Again, great new feature added across there that we've been asking for. And then there's a new extension scenario that will support the custom material fields that are going to flow to your production material output. That's also, again, a nice new feature. So if you do add different sorts of characteristics or things onto your item that you want to bring through to production, to use it as methods for grouping and sorting and things like that, you can now bring those in, and then they'll be available on the work lists and whatnot to be able to do different types of reporting on those custom fields. Right, so that's the supply chain management side. And now we'll move into the customer relationship management. A lot of new things, very cool stuff came out with the CRM area. One being the master quote for quote versions. Massive use case, and a lot of, if you're using quoting or estimating within ByDesign, up until this feature capability, If you wanted to do different quote versions, or if you had if you went back and forth with your customer or prospect and did a lot of estimating, you'd either have to just update the quote itself if you were in the negotiation phase, and then manage like how you made changes through change control. Or you would do a follow-up quote. So quote from a quote to copy it over and make changes. And with that came an inflated pipeline. So if you're actually looking at the pipeline for things and you see that you've got 3 or 4 quotes out there, obviously you're quadrupling your pipeline unless you cancel certain quotes, but your customer might want 4 of those different quotes because you're giving discounts on certain things or changing prices on other things. And they might go back and say, okay, I want the quote 2 price. So now we can have 3, 4, 5 active quotes for a customer, and then just review that first quote that was out there within reporting and not see an inflated pipeline. And so within the new business area within our quotes, if we want to kick off a new quote version, you'll have this a follow-up activity here, and another new option shows up. So your sales quote version. And then immediately as I have that different quote version, that first one is going to be used as my master, right? And so once I submit this quote, if I pop back into the document flow for the sales quote, now we have, you know, if I created a second one in here, you'll see the quote unquote, but if I do another quote version, we'll say we're going to discount it rather than changing the price. And then we come back into the document flow. We'll now see that all of our quote versions, rather than in the past, if you were doing a quote from a quote from a quote where it would come all the way across, we're now seeing all of our versions coming straight down into here. And so within our reporting, there's now a new option within the quote volume report that you can pull in. You're gonna want to bring that volume in here. So now I can see anything with my master quote. So my 581, the 624 that we just did are going to be our master quote versions. You want, these don't come in obviously through just the fields. If you're bringing them into the views, you're going to want to go into add fields, go into quotation, and under sales quote, you now should see the master quote and the master quote ID. All right, so the other piece within the quotes itself is being able to update the manual reference. And I really like this, and I hope it extends back through other business objects of being able to link up and really manually create your document flow essentially. I know I run into this a lot within our CRM where sales reps might get confused and they're putting activities or things just on the account record. They're not linking them to a quote or to another business document within the system. Now we have that cool ability to create that ad hoc workflow in here. So if I have this quote for Silver Star, I have a new option within the work list under the actions called Update Manual Reference. And then I can choose any sort of reference type that I have. So maybe it's I want to link it back to a lead. And then I can come in and actually search for all the leads that might be appended to here. So if I bring in 1630, and I can have multiple references in there as well. And so if I refresh this guy, and let's pop back into the quote, and we should see our document flow update with a lead to a quote. So now we've got our lead. And then in addition, because that original lead was tied to a campaign, now we have even a better workflow because we're linking a whole bunch of different stuff together to get that beautiful document flow. Couple of other bits in here. Our product ID is now available in the sales order approval screen. You can see that as opposed to just the description. There's a new approval workflow that can be activated for B2B sales orders coming in from e-commerce. There's now a new approval for your invoice cancellation. they've now added a new option in here for absolute dollar value and a percent based overall discounts in CRM documents. So again, one of the big things that's been asked for is being able to do flat rate types of discounts as opposed to just overall percentage discounts. And you can activate it overall in fine tuning, but now we can add it ad hoc. The one thing that you will note is that with the absolute dollar value, there isn't a price table for it yet. So you can't just say for this particular customer or this particular item or item group, it gets $5 off. It has to be added manually on the sales order. I highly suggest reading the blog about this one just to get the gist of where and how it's executed. But if we go into the sales orders in here, the way that you would add it. So you go into your sales order view all, and then within your pricing and invoicing tab, there's a new row that's been added in here, price components. So now you'll see in here that you've got an additional overall discount or an additional overall discount percent. So those will be added manually onto your sales orders. All right, and then the two last pieces on this screen are the down payment requests. We can now adapt those with extension fields. And then you'll also see a warning message when you're trying to do a service confirmation for a contract that isn't valid. And last bits in here. So we'll now see in the customer relationship management, there's a new extension scenario from the business partner address into sales documents. A couple new things in here that are pretty cool are the dynamic target groups. If you're using marketing and campaign management within ByDesign, up until now, if you wanted to create a target group, it was static. So every time you created a new campaign off of that static list, you'd have to go in, rerun your query, and then append your records or intersect your records to take off or add people into that group. Now I can do target groups based on a report. Okay, so I'll show that as well. So let's say again, if I go into my sales order volume report, and I bring this guy up, you know, we're looking at our sales order volume detail report, and maybe I just want to bring in you know, the customers that are over $100,000 because I think they're good customers and they're going to buy from me. So I can quickly create based on the net value all of my customers by count, and here on greater than $100,000. And so now that's going to automatically filter my list. And hopefully you've played with this as well when you, in any of your sales types of reports or account types of reports, we can use our filters, create our report, and then we can export all of our accounts to new target groups. So that's one way that you can use dynamic transactional data to be able to create that target group. But again, that was just creating a static group. So if you wanted to use that again, you'd have to run the report, update your target group, things like that. Now what you will do is actually bookmark that. And then save that view. And so when you go into the marketing area to create a new campaign, marketing. There we go. So look at my marketing and have my new campaign. And let's pop into our, actually, let's go into our target groups here. And so as you go into either creating a new campaign or editing a new campaign, you'll see you can add your members manually or you can add them from the report. And so you'll see the one that I've already added, excuse me, added in here, that you've got your bookmark name of customers within the last 6 months and what the characteristic is that you're using. So you'll select obviously the account, because those are the accounts that you're pulling in. It's either an account or a contact, depending on where you're pulling your data from. So you would choose one or the other depending on who you're targeting. So here's my live report. And then the same thing will happen in your maintain members as well. So you see your members from report. And then we can save that guy, and you know, this should append if I had customers that didn't have sales within the last 6 months. This would be updated with those new members. All right. So that's again, great new feature that if you're using the marketing area within the system. And then for dropship orders, you've got sales order comments that are going to flow into the invoice from dropships. And now the last piece on the CRM side is the insight to action. This has been, they've been talking about this for a while, of some of the new bits that are coming in, of being able to run reports within the system and then essentially be able to initiate new transactions or new things. So like basically like being able to mass update based on various criteria within the system on a lot of different business objects. So the first one that they've released to the ByDesign system itself to be able to do through the standard UI is to set the ABC class. Now there's a lot of other functions that are in there and exposed that can be used, that can be created using the SDK. But up until now, this is the first one that they're working with. So I'm going to show you how to activate it and then what it can do. So to activate it, you'll go into your business analytics, and then there's an option in here, and the navigation area is, oops, sorry, sorry about that. It is analytical actions. So this may or may not be something that you have activated for your users. So you would just go into application user management and activate it. And so you'll now see, like I said, you've got all of these different functions in here. These are all things that can be added using the SDK. But right now, this is the one that we would, that we can activate in here. Sorry, it is through navigations. And so you'll see in navigations, you've got this report to report navigation. They've added all these guys things. So here's our set ABC on the supplier. So what you'll do is click new, and then you'll pop into here, add your new option called set ABC. And then what you'll set is which report you're actually going to use. So what report you're going to use to run the characteristics. So if you're going to, maybe use 2 or 3 different reports, you want to set up 3 or 4 different analytic or navigation actions in here. And then you've got all your actions. You'll pick the set ABC. Like I said, it's the only one that's active that you can use for. And then select your characteristic name as either the customer or supplier. You'll see this works for both customers and suppliers right now. And so then as an example, if I go back to that sales order volume report, what you'll see when I click on either, if I use this and I say, okay, yeah, everybody that's over $100,000, I want to make them an A supplier. You'll have this little button in here. So now this thing that had just shown up in the last couple releases, this little clipboard, is our insight to action, is what they call it. And you'll see it says set ABC classification. Now, the one thing to note is that if you are on a particular record and you select that, it's only going to update that record. Now, what you'll do if you want to update the full data set that's appearing here, you would go to set your actions in the header level and set ABC class, and then a pop-up will appear in here. And if I just select that, it's going to go back in and it's going to update my records. So when I pop into the account record for ZGF as an example, I should now see that they are an A account. So now they're an A account. Again, really nice if you're trying to do a lot of shuffling around, you make decisions based on ABC classifications. It's a great tool to have. Okay, so that takes care of all of the customer relationship management stuff. We're getting really close to the end here. So in the supplier area, I am very excited. I'll go from the bottom up because it is the new piece that you're seeing in all caps is my very exciting new function that just came out. So from the bottom up, payment terms can now be both a fixed duration and a number of days after the invoice or receipt date. Before it was like either or. Now you can combine them both. The trade name for the suppliers is now available in supplier details data source. Set ABC classification for suppliers. You just saw it for the customers. It works exactly the same way for the customers. There's now a new preview button on the purchase order work list, and there's an approval routing for recurring supplier invoices. So again, anything with an asterisk, you're going to need to do some business configuration updates or changes. So I will show the purchase order preview, but just that I'll show it in the context of, yay, intelligent invoice scanning. You may or may not have known, I've done a Q&A Café back in the day when we showed just the collaboration window, supplier invoice scanning. Now it's been beefed up and hulked up with new capabilities in Leonardo, the machine learning capabilities within the system. It's gotten a lot more user friendly to be able to add documents into the system, to be able to do the scanning. I said it's going to take on the machine learning capability. So as you start to utilize the engine, it's going to learn, it's going to get better and more accurate with the coding and the finding. But I have found if you're using purchase orders in the system to be able to match those to invoices, it's really, really accurate and works very well, very well. So I'm going to show you that real quick. Again, this is you do need to activate this in business configuration. There's also a new work center view that you'll want to add in through application and user management. So we'll go into that the purchase orders here. So I have a purchase order out here, again, showing that one other function, the preview button, the changed and canceled PO, those you can now see from the purchase order work list. But right now I've got this this purchase order for my paper packages for $10.40, and it's a purchase order 1186. So I've got then my invoice, which is, find that invoice here on all of my screens. Okay, where are you? Shoot. 1 second, where I put it. Oh, well, we will just go on because I cannot find it right now. But what you will do, so let's say we do have our purchase order, so our invoice that's sitting out here. You still have, oh, there it is, hidden behind the collaboration window. So you've got the capability in here from still use the collaboration window. So what you would do is set up your, set up your folder in here and then just drag and drop your invoices that you've saved to a local drive or whatnot. Up until this release, you had to have special scanning technology. So you'd have to print out the invoice or feed it into some sort of OCR reader that would convert it to a text file and then have to upload the PDF and the text file together for it to read. Now, all you need is the PDF. It'll scan the PDF specifically. So that really reduces a lot of the heartache related to that. But you still have the capability to upload upload into this folder. So basically you could actually have people send invoices into a particular folder and then have them read it automatically. Or what you also can do in here, is, let's say we've got it in our supplier invoicing work center. There, like I said, there's this new function. So it's called invoice scanning. Don't mistake it for invoice file upload. The first time, probably, I would say, if you're creating a lot of suppliers, you have to run the Synchronize master data. And so that's going to actually pull all your suppliers and all their information, like address information and stuff, to help the optical character recognition engine recognize any changes to the supplier. So if you're changing them a lot, go ahead and when you're first doing a batch of these, and then do start synchronization. It takes a few minutes or so, but if you don't do it very regularly, maybe every week or so, but you'll see how many records it's been done and when it was last synchronized. So just remember that that's one thing that you'll have to do. And so basically I can take this invoice, now one or multiples, I can create this job. So I can say, upload, and then I can take multiple invoices and just drag and drop them into the folder. And so you'll see that there again. I can have as many as I want to. And then I can start that process. Right? And so it takes, obviously it's going through, it's trying to read and parse out all the data and plop it into the right places. So it does take some time for you to be able to do it. But once it's done, what you'll see in here is the scan values and then the reviewed values and then your item level. So a lot like what you saw on the right on the old OCR capability. And then what you can do is actually review those and make updates and then create your invoice from here. So let's see if that's done. Not done yet. If it doesn't, if the invoice has been created and then there's any sort of other things, like if you're doing uploads of free text type items and you don't have, and you're not using prior purchase orders that have been coded to cost centers and, cost centers and transactional objects and things like that, you'll have to go in obviously and code those after the fact. So you would go into your invoices and credit memos and be able to see something that's, it would show in process. And then you can go in and actually edit the data. So now you'll see, again, when you bring it up, that you've got all of the data that's sitting here, that's open, and then I can make any of the adjustments that I need to before I post and release it. Okay. All right, I think that takes us, oh no, got one more bit in here, two more bits in here of just cross topics type stuff. There's some new themes available in the system. I'm going to show you just a couple examples before we log off for the day. And I'll kind of give you my thoughts on them, of what I've noticed from them. But then there's also the Help Center now has a new link to the hotfix collection as well. So if you are in Help, you can see the hotfix collection information, which again is also nice too. So you can see what things are getting updated and fixed within the system if you are experiencing issues or something's a little tweaky. All right, so I'm going to go back to my Launchpad so you can see the different changes in here. So a user can come in and change their settings. Now within the settings, you've got the appearance. So there's all these different options in here. So I'm gonna show you a couple of these new things. So you've got quartz light, quartz dark, and now there's also the high contrast white and dark. But if I come into the quartz light, it doesn't dynamically change. You've got to update it or log back in again. And so it looks nice from the front when you're seeing this. The one thing that I noticed in here, so if I was in, let's see, maybe they've changed this. Nope. So this is the one thing that I've noticed. If you or your users are reliant upon more visual versus the shape of the signals that you're getting for things like ATP or supply planning or exceptions anywhere in the system. I wouldn't recommend using either the new Quartz Light or Quartz Dark, because it's basically removing all of the color coding in here. You still see that things are, if you know or remember that something that was square was green, yellow was triangle, and that reds are the stoplight, you're fine. But for me, I kind of am sticking back to the old original because it is, I'm definitely a more visual person. And I am going to show you the high contrast white and black too, just in case you were thinking about doing it. I might save you a minute or two of playing around with these things, but it's a little bit intriguing. And it's really dark. So it's either really dark, or when you change it to red, it's really, really bright. Though some of your users might like that. I think it's kind of jarring, but anyway, that's out there and that's available for you to start using if you want to. Right. And so I think that will take us to the end of our session. I left this link up here again if you ask me for this presentation, all the links to all the blogs, because there's lots of information out there in terms of the YouTubes that keep popping up. There's blogs, there's help guides, there's all kinds of stuff, and then influence. So I just consolidated it all together. So feel free, like I said, reach out to sales@vistaview.com or laura.herculo@vistaview.com, and I will certainly forward this on to you. This is a link as well to the influence topics. As we all know, we are the ones that are driving the roadmap. So go in and vote for your ideas, add your ideas. This is just a culmination showing you all the different influence ideas that went into this release and what was voted on. So you can get a culmination, and that's in the influence database in the blog section on the right-hand side. So you can pull that up and actually see exactly which features relate to a particular idea in there. And with that, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy Release 2008 as much as I am, and we'll see you for 2011. Bye.